Welcome, all who come to hear my tales. Tonight we travel to one of the largest lakes with the clearest water in North America. You can find the lake in Montana, commonly known as the Flathead Lake. Not only does the lake stretch for 300 miles across, it is also nearly 400 feet deep at its lowest point. It is home to bass and crappie, an occasional sturgeon, and a large unknown creature that has been rumored to be in the general area for the past century. I'm talking about the Flathead Lake monster. But before we go any further in tonight's video, I have a small request to make. If you enjoy the video, subscribe, like, and click the bell overhead. It does help the channel to grow. You can also find my channel on TikTok, Reddit, and Twitter. Thank you. Now on with tonight's tale. Flathead Lake Monster. I've lived on a lake most of my life. I'm no one special, just a fisherman. And a very active in using my boat to go fish in the middle of the lake. Most times I catch my share of bass and trout. But one day, I caught sight of something spectacular and truly peculiar. The day started off bright and sunny, like any other day before it. I'd gathered my bait, had a cooler full of my favorite drinks, usually water and some Gatorade, as well as a small lunch. I do drink alcohol, but I don't like making a habit of drinking and boating, especially when I'm fishing alone. So I went out to one of my favorite spots, a cove in the northeastern part of the lake. Here there's very little boats and no real activity from jet skis or honestly any other fisherman. This has always been my spot for the past couple of decades. I'm not far from the bank. Maybe half a mile. Like I said, Flathead Lake is a very large area, covering an easy 6,000 acres. But as the day went by and the sun got high overhead, I kicked back, having my lunch, a couple of sandwiches I made earlier, and my favorite bottle of Gatorade. As I sat there and waited for a bite, it took me a while to pay attention to it. But off my port side of the boat, yes, I was a sailor for a very long time. And all of you that don't know naval terminology, port side is the left side of the vessel. I noticed a large, slow-moving object floating toward me. I don't have the biggest boat. It's a simple boat, but it's one that I've had many years, and I've grown quite fond of it. I guess it's about 20, maybe 25 feet long. And this object, as it got closer, I realized was longer than my boat. I pulled my pole in, stood up with a pair of binoculars to see if I get a better view of the object floating toward me. It was a large mass, long, and kind of bulky. Maybe a little over 4 or 5 feet wide. It was a really dark color. Kind of a dark green or maybe even black. Definitely tell some seaweed was on top of it. As it drew closer, I noticed it had mounds or large humps on its back. And every now and then you see a few ripples coming from the front and rear, as if the log, if that's what it was slowly swimming toward me. I'm not going to lie, I was starting to get a little nervous at this point. Having heard the tale of the great serpent for many years, but never actually seeing one. Is this what I was looking at now? Was I looking at Flessie? A local nickname for the Flathead lake monster? My answer was soon came to be understood. As from the water, maybe a foot or two, rose an odd-shaped head. I would say it was like an eel, a giant eel or lizard-like head. It turned and looked at me with black, hollow-looking eyes. And he simply stared at me. It never sped up or tried to attack me. Even though I had no doubt it could capsize my boat rather easily. No, it simply watched me. As it drew closer, I realized the skin or scales was indeed a really dark green. I see the ripples now clearly coming from the front and back, as if it had 4 fins, slowly paddling toward me. Now and then the body would make a slow S movement, like a snake swimming. I had no gun, no harpoon, only my fishing pole, tackle, and net. So if this thing decided to attack me, let's say I was really thinking about making my peace with the man up in the sky overhead. But it never came to that. It simply sunk after watching me for several moments, diving slowly under the water, as if it lost complete interest in whatever I was doing. I never saw it again. Never again did I lay eyes upon that serpent, or eel, or large fish, whatever it may be. But I know what I saw. It was longer than my boat, and easily almost as wide as I am tall. If it wanted to, I have no doubt I would become its next meal. Lucky for me, Flessie enjoys our lake and occasionally coming up to see what happens on the surface. But as yet, to be aggressive, and certainly not a man-eater. Hurried home, calling it an early day, telling my wife what I witnessed and how when I next go out, I made it a point to get me a harpoon gun. Not to kill it, but in case it decides I look appetizing enough, to take me down in that clear water, never to come up again. If you enjoyed my video, thank you. I come back every week with tales from a different state about cryptids, ghost hauntings, true stories, or monsters from tales long told. And as always, remember, beware of those that dwell in the Shadowlands.